Through the process now of you all signing in, taking a look at the program, what questions do you all have for me about it?
Do you feel like there's a lot of bells and whistles that might distract the kids?
Perhaps. It's one of the things that we've discussed as teachers, and I know that like one of the options would be to adjust the font and adjust the coloring in the background. So it's one of those things we've talked to the students about, making sure that we're staying focused as they're going through the process. That's a good question.
And, I noticed that there's, of course, an area for, and this may be because I come from a different generation, note taking within it. Speaking of bells and whistles, is that effective? Are our kids ready to take notes at the computer level and to come back to those? And
I'm glad that you've asked that. We have a program, a couple of things are happening here to support that process. We have a program called TeenViz that our students are using, and I've trained my language arts teachers to utilize the post-it note feature that's on the computer to make sure they're accustomed to note-taking as they're going through that process. That's one of the things we're working on. And then today, actually, I led a training with my 6th grade team and talk with them about the importance of having the students read the question, identify perhaps what the question is about, and then creating a graphic organizer that will kind of support that process. So the students would be identifying the important topic, listening to the podcast, the audio portion of that particular assessment, and then going back and specifically answering based on what they're hearing from the podcast and based on their important words that were written in the questions. So we're building that process. It's going to take us, time, but it's a work in progress.
And the podcast isn't something that they've done in the past?
No, it's not been on the FCAT prior, so we're working on, again, just trying to think about different ways that we can be building the students' auditory skills. Like, for instance, one of the recommendations that I gave was to have students begin to just perhaps listen to books on tape and short little snippets. I always have students say to me the FCAT is terribly boring, and I'm sure FSA is not going to be highly engaging either, and the podcast may not be interesting to the students either. So it's important that they're also getting exposure to auditory things that may be not so interesting to them. And there's, lots of podcasts on iTunes that the kids could be listening to again build those auditory listening skills. Any other questions that I can answer? No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was great. Do you see this as, I actually do have one last question,
Okay,
which I think may be helpful. But in your experience, what is the difference, or where are we going at from the FCAT and sort of the learning skills and the levels of retention and synthesis and
the complexity is very
complexity
different
of the test?
Yes, the complexity seems to be very different. That was one of the things that I immediately noticed when I think about the FCAT previous release test that we were permitted to look at as teachers. We would look at the complexity of the questions as opposed to what this is asking the kids to do. And there's a great deal of analysis and synthesis that has to occur. Like, for instance, one of the pieces that I looked at today with my 6th grade teachers required the students to do some reading of a text. And they also had to be looking at a graphic of some sort. And they had to answer a question based on the story as well as the graphics. So they were actually pulling information from both pieces in order to answer the question. So it's requiring them to do a lot more deeper thinking than they've been accustomed to in the past.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.